know that your personality is all like intertwined with your goals. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with it or that is really bad to consider. I actually think it's made me a better business owner, it's made me a better leader. So my name is Huang. I'm an occupational therapist and certified hand therapist, and I own a therapy clinic in Miami and then started Hand Therapy Secrets to work with more therapists to help you develop your clinical skills and business skills. And I don't think that we talk about personalities enough. Like, and I'm a huge fan of doing all the personality tests. I've done so many of them. I just love them. I just didn't know I was gonna like them so much, even though my major was psychology. I thought I was gonna be a psychologist. Anyway, I went down the route of occupational therapy, and I actually love it so much because I can work with that mental health, that aspect. I wouldn't even call it mental health. um, I would just call it, that aspect of personality, thinking, and that kind of stuff. And then I like the physicality of being a therapist. Like I like the being able to move around. I like the, tactile, kinesthetic types of stuff. So it's not all just like talking about your feelings, because I'm actually not really good at talking about my feelings. But I do think that diving into learning more about your personality can really help you to create better goals, achievable goals, and ones that are more rooted in what you want and what you need versus what you see in the world, right? So let's talk about that really quick. So, what do you see in the world? Do you see in the world right now, especially all over social media, like everyone's going on vacation, living this glam life? And you're like, how come they get to live this glam life and I'm not living this glam life? How come they get to work on the beach for 4 hours and I'm slaving away? Because, truth be told, nobody's working 4 hours, and nobody can really work on the beach. I've tried, I've done it. um, but you should try as well if that's something you want. But there's phases through your business, right? There's phases through you're always going to go. You have your ups and downs, right? You have it's always these ups and downs, and how long you stay down is determined based on your decisions, your goals, and I think a lot of it your personality, right? I think that we need to build business in a way that is sustainable for us and our personality and the things that essentially at the end of the day you want. I wanted a business that gives me various types of freedoms, right? Like autonomy. Autonomy is extremely important to me. And I didn't know this until I started diving a lot more into personalities. And it is one of my major motivators, right? So oftentimes we think about personality as being either introverted or extroverted. Um, but introverted and extroverted are just essentially ways in which we attain energy. So a lot of times people think, "Oh my God, but I'm introverted and extroverted, and this is why I can't do great things." I know a ton of introverted business owners that do really amazing, and then I know a bunch of extroverted business owners that do really great as well, and they all have their like kind of the nuances of like diving. If you know more about yourself and like what brings you down, you try to minimize that, and you build a business that then caters to how you're introverted versus if you're someone who's extroverted, what you need, right? I can only speak to myself. I'm pretty extroverted. I can be um I can be in a crowded room. Like I literally could be at a bar and gather, and like refuel my energy and feel energized later. I really can. I don't have to talk to anyone. I don't have to, mingle. But if I do, like it's fine. I can still get my energy up if I deem it to be a relaxing kind of situation. But introverts might need a lot more alone time, right, to refill their energy because just talking to people, just being in a crowded room, just being with noise might be too much for them. I'm an extrovert that doesn't love networking. Networking is not my jam, right? Networking is not my jam. You might love networking and be introverted and do really, really well, right? But this is just one aspect of your personality and knowing which one you are. And sometimes people are kind of in the middle, right? Most people are kind of in the middle. If you are in a group that's talking and doing things that you like to do, it might bring more of the extrovertedness out of you than versus being introverted because you don't like being there. But that's just one aspect of your personality. Think about why people burn out, right? So I often think like personality wise, I always think about burnout because some people burn out faster than others. And I think that has to do with like knowing your personality and knowing your motivations, right? What's another aspect of just being a person and being, and doing well in business? I think sometimes people who are a single task versus multitasking, right? Because not everyone does multitasking well. Like they like having a bunch of stuff going on at the same time. Another thing about business, I think like ideas, like some people are just like booming with like a shit ton of ideas, but they can't stick to one. They can't get it going. These are all like, I think, big part of personalities. Now, introversion and extroversion is just one aspect of personality. That one aspect of a personality that has to do with like how you get your energy. But I'm a really big fan of the Enneagram, and the Enneagram talks more about your motivations, right? Motivations. And I think that was one of the biggest things for me. I started diving into more about what I needed and what I wanted. And I wish that someone talked about this. I mean, at some point you get to it and you're like, oh, I need to dive a little bit more into personality and into goals. And this is one huge module inside my class because, we can talk about marketing, we can talk about, profits, and we can talk about how do you grow your business. But I think that at the end of the day, you have to build a business that is going to suit you because nobody else is going to do this hard shit. You're the only person who can do it. So I'm going to share more about me, but that's just because I know more about me than I know about you. So you have to kind of look into this and dive into it and say, okay, what about this do I like that can feed me information about myself so that I can make really good decisions around what I need, right? So the Enneagram talks about the triad, and I always like, I did this for myself, but I always like look at other people and I think about like, what triad are they in? Because it's really tremendously helped me with my staff, getting to know more about me so I can get to know more about them, and then knowing how to interact with them so that they get the benefit of it has helped me tremendously, not just in being able to recruit, hire, and keep a team, but also has really helped me manage a lot of things as it pertains to, sometimes the difficult nature of working with people who have different problems, right? Like our patients. So let's dive into the triads of the Enneagram. So in the third triad, you have the gut, you have the heart, and then you have the head, right? And let's see, this is 8, 9. So in the Enneagram, there's 9 numbers, and this is 2, 3, 4. This is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 1. So people who fall into, and I do this with like almost everybody. I'm like, okay, so very quickly, without overthinking, when something bad happens to you, how do you normally respond? Do you normally respond with feeling shameful or with turning inward and focusing on how you feel? Or do you tend to overthink about something, right? The gut people tend to be rely on like what does their gut tell you? Like literally, what does your gut tell you? So usually the gut people turn to like anger. The heart people turn into like shame, and then the head people tend to sense fear. So there's a couple, and I'm sure I'm like doing this like not to the best. But usually when I'm talking to someone, I always ask them when something bad happens. How does it like initially, right? Initially make you feel? Do you feel shameful? Do you feel like, are you afraid? Or do you get really angry? And so that's how I'll kind of break up the triad to start to, to get to know someone. And I just want to preface this. The Enneagram is all about you getting to know yourself, right? So I have spent time using the Enneagram to get to know myself, my personality, what motivates me. But in learning to know more about myself, I have learned more about the Enneagram, and then I've been able to kind of like be able to pick out certain things that then help me to know how to act and respond. And so I know I'm an 8, by the way. I'm an 8. And then you wing a number next to you. You can either be an 8 and a 9 or an 8 and a 7. I don't want to digress and go into too much into it, but my personality, I'm an 8. And so, as an 8, you gotta look that up. As an 8, yeah, when something bad happens to me or around me, I like my initial feeling is like anger. I get very angry. I'm also somebody who I'm always rooting for the underdog, right? Like I'm always like, I feel like there should be a certain amount of justice in the world, a certain amount of fairness in the world. We know that that doesn't always happen. So like that can really get me like fired up and really angry. So I have, I tend to have like real high standards about like how things are supposed to be. So things like that. There's so much more to it, but just like with any upside, like there's like really great things about you. There's also like not so great things about you, and getting to know those two aspects can really help. So I'll give you an example. I'm also a wing 7. So wing 7 has like tons of ideas. They have tons of energy. They're always like bouncing from one thing to the next. So for me as an 8 with a wing 7, I actually don't burn out, right? It's not that I don't burn out, but my wick of it is like really high. So I can go for like a lot longer than most people before I burn out, right? Now, some people who are not on that spectrum might have a lower, well, I call it a wick, but might have a lower threshold. Threshold's a better word. A lower threshold. So you have to recognize when you would burn out, when you won't. Like I have a really high threshold, so it takes a lot before I burn out, but I have to recognize like when is that lot. I also have like multiple, like I can multitask, but the things that help me are also the things that can hurt me, right? So multitasking, sometimes I have like too much going on and I can essentially be detrimental to my own goals because of my personality. So I'm gonna hit the ground running. I'm like, I barely finish one thing and I'm like running on to the next thing, running on to the next thing. The things that help you are the things that can hurt you, right? So knowing and learning more about your personality, you can know when those, because we all as human beings tend to think, oh, only the good side, only the good things. Just like, oh, you start your business and you only think about all the money that you can make and all the time off you can have. But the downside to it is that, some years you're not making money, some quarters you're not making money. And sometimes you're working a lot more than you would like to, but at the end of the day, like you still have to do the work, right? So getting to know your personality and knowing, what triad you're in can really help you. And it's a self-discovery. It really is. I was working with another business partner and she swore up and down she was an 8. Like her and I were like, we're the same. But it can be so different because I'm an 8 and I wing a 7, and she's actually a 7 and she wings an 8. So you can look and it can be so similar, but her motivations as a 7 were so different from mine. She wanted to really run from one business to the next. She was ready to burn her whole business down all the time. Sometimes I feel like I want to burn my business down too. But at the same time, I feel so, almost like in a way, like righteous. Like I just still want to um, I don't want to say it's so generic, but I do want to help people so much that gives me enough fire to move on, like to keep going with the same thing. But yeah, so in terms of personality and your goals, we don't all have the same goals, right? I share business stuff with you, but I share it with, from my perspective, and I think I have an ability to see in other perspectives just because I've been studying it for a while. But you have to be careful, even from me, taking any advice from me. And the reason why I'm sharing the personality and your goals is because no two businesses are the same, and no two people running their businesses and starting their businesses are the same. So much about learning your personality is learning about what you truly, really want, right? And what you're willing to work on, give up, um, because we're not the same, right? I can talk to you so much about like how much to do and how much to go, because I can go and I can do a lot. But I think it's so important to kind of recognize some of the things that are the things that you don't do well. We always want to look at the good side. We have to look at the downside too. And some of the downsides are part of your personality, the threshold for the amount of work that you need to do without a break, the ability to work on multiple projects at a time versus only one project at a time. The thing that gives you, based off of your personality, the thing that you find gives you more satisfaction and joy, right? Because if you cannot find those things, it's really hard to be able to do. Now, some people can do mundane things and they don't care, and that is a part of their personality, right? So I have someone I know who's starting a business, and he's like, and he is actually in, I believe, kind of in the head triad, because he's like, I don't have to like what I do. I don't have to like what I do. But if I know that there's a goal and there's a purpose, he can do it. Someone who sits as a heart person, as a feeling person, their motivations are not going to be the same. I don't think that they would be able to do something that they don't necessarily inherently care about. You know what I mean? Or a gut person. So I think that when it comes down to your business, you really have to learn about your personality and create your goals around it. Inside the Business Corner course, I talk more extensively of this, and then I talk about how you can use different personality tests to really talk about the people that you serve, which is like your ideal customer. And I think that's really important because however you are, right? There's another person sitting across from you. We work in a service industry meaning we serve people, right? I'm a person and I serve another person. I really do need to know what helps me, what gets me going, but what, is, what ticks me off. And being able to recognize it in other people allows me to speak to them in a way that is most helpful for them. And so I think personality is really huge. If you are starting your business, been in business for a while, and you're frustrated, look at your personality and your goals. Because I know that was me 2 years into my business. I was so frustrated because I had no understanding of my personality and had no idea of my goals. All I knew was I wanted to start a fucking business and I wanted to make money, period. Basically, I created a job for myself. But then 2 years into it, once I did create that job for myself, I said that there has to be more to this than how I am so frustrated all the time. And that led me into a journey of like not wanting to live that way. And that set me off into developing more of my business skills, and then also developing my clinical skills, because the more people I can help, the better my business grew. And the more I learned about business and developing my business skills, the more people I was able to reach and help them with their stuff. And now I'm at a capacity where I can help other therapists help their people in their part of the town. So it's quite rewarding if you continue to be curious and dive into it. All right. I hope this video helps. If you have a comment on business or on personality, definitely leave me a comment below so I can make more content, make more videos like this for you. All right.